Bate, Tini Sancho Semkandor Gawatan, Tene Shibakapsa and Lumi Jantin, dancing the Pachawank, Sentana. Tini need that Mananaji, the Dogatawa. Yonga Yotsan, Sentola, Tini, give a Pacha Yaguba. That is just on those.
So we must tame our afflictive emotions with bodhichitta. And when we die, then even though we have we don't have our body any longer, the mind still is under the control of self-grasping and the habitual imprints. And as a result of that, even after we have died, we will continue to experience happiness and suffering, all kinds of feelings, just like we do in a dream. And that's why we have to form a virtuous, habitual imprint in our minds.
Dewa chungu chila gongkorma dewa. Tarpatu nyesi jito kachimbo imbares.
And so in this world there are all kinds of different living beings, as limitless living beings, large and small. And among them, the human being is endowed with a greater level of intelligence, like a discriminating wisdom. And so for that reason, because we have these abilities as a human beings, it's important that we do not become distracted by smaller, meaningless experiences of pleasure, but rather we should really set our heart toward attaining liberation.
Onjola Jachimpo, Tramampo. You do it in it, the Mount Tata, do some the unit, Tanka Yuris. Some, the Mount Tata, do some the Son Tanka Yuri. Then Legana, the other see Yuris. Then it tender and then send the Chipo or some Tanshana, then the young Boshila, then Chiganam Chakadonga, young Goba Hindu. Then it Tari Millen the top, Lander Jitney. She, then Tamba Chidrip cock up, the Mahova sea gojete, then he catch him. Then he young train gojeris. Then he parted Sasek, Nanakari, song Yorisina. Gemma Dala, Gine, pardon, charted as Cella Lomi, Lelo Panzen. Cella Lomi, Lelo Panzen. To some Gomson, Mayang Lamlan Yop. Nansen Lam, Goson Lam, Munjorn. Milil Linjik top at the soon there. Can you? Milil Linjik top at the soon there. Young man lam the dupe to me, song was. Then the Yendu, then Sanjay compound, drug when a male in Mato, Yin Latina, in a Sanjay compound driven no the Maronte, then it David Messy Conwan, Sovalon, Yapoja Tom cheap, Yapoja top the cheat, Gajek Zana, Dolong Mepa, in St. Palmita, Center than Kangar. Then it Yapoja Tomna San Reva. Then it Mandopa, Yong Sam Topa. Then the red dog and a message don't look at you do. Then Tangazon look at Jebba Tabatam Jacket, then call on the Don Hajarangi, Song you Paris, Memor Job, Romyak and Dan, seeing bit length to drug at Santa Zena. To Georgia Sang. Then that was Zena, then Dabachula. Tambichula, Nawa Tangdalang, Kawa Che the Senate, soon to know your parties.
And so it is also, though, because as human beings we possess this intelligence, that we also have an ability to think a lot. So as human beings, we think all the time. Our thinking is really vast. We think about the past, the present, and the future. And then really, in accordance with our thinking, we also act in limitless different ways. And if we only think about, if the things that we think about are only concerning this life, then we are really wasting away our life. And so as a human being, we are all bound to the experiences of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And also we have the opportunity as a human being to understand the teachings as to what we should do and what we shouldn't do. We have an opportunity to practice the Dharma, and therefore it's very important to not let it go to waste and to remember this again and again. In the root verses of the 6 bardos, for the bardo of birth or living, it says, "Alas, now when the bardo of this life is dawning upon me, I will abandon laziness for which life has no time, enter undistracted the path of study, reflection, and meditation, making perceptions and mind the path, and realize the 3 kayas. Now that for once I have attained the human body, this is not the time to remain in the ways of distraction." So now we have found a human body whereby we can actually attain the state of enlightenment. And it is not a different body, and it is nothing is transferred. Everything that we do is experienced on our own body. It is also no one else that is harming us. Everything depends on ourselves and our own actions. And so, since this life will come to an end, and we have found it now for just a moment, actually, it is important to make the best use of it, day and night, and especially not to spend one's life thinking about all kinds of things, worrying about things. For example, often we think in terms of we want to get something. We have a lot of hopes, hope of getting what we want, or if we are afraid that something bad will happen, we are worried, and so on. So this is how how our life passes by, while we're just thinking about our hopes and our fears and are worried about things. So basically, life passes by in a state of worry and hope and fear. And actually, already the masters of the past have told us that samsara has the nature of suffering. That's just how it is by nature. They said that samsara is like a fire pit, or it is like a swamp of corpses, or it is like an island of monsters, or it is like a nest of poisonous, venomous snakes, and so on. So we already know that samsara has the nature of suffering. And so therefore, knowing that and now having the opportunity to practice the Dharma, we should really practice the Dharma with diligence, really forbearing any difficulty for the sake of the Dharma.
Okay, then the gambo packet, and send the pimba sound of Matawa. In the David Sancho Drabarsi Bate, Ranjin Ram the Cheva in Son, Ranjin Ram Cheva, Chup Yura. Gambo packet.
And then Gambopa said in the Precious Garland of the Supreme Path, so there is one section that is called the 10 dharmas of or ways of being kind to oneself. And so one is that So in this life, to bring about the benefit, even just in this life, then the happiness of self and others, remember impermanence. and strive toward lasting happiness.
Tene ngaso chame dan hisargi yitinje kamde chapo shitena tene thomi dagimi ba rang samba na yin druptu de kabo yin jiri indris tene meresen dongare yo paris tene san koyo sowa lomju la gangami jang nang sen de nyumbo bang de hyondo go yudu yuzam tene chokhimi ba ris te control ama jambo na Kogo Tsangya, Gugu Sesar Mang, Medin Jima Chujaran Samlo, Control Machek, Kogo Tsangya, Jala Jayuna, Nigo, iPhone, iPad, iPad, computer, some Jayun, Mang Rondo Yursen, Kogo Tsangya, Gugu Sesar Mang, Medin Jima Chujaran Samlo, Saint Londo Star, Chohimi Bondra, Lama Chino, Tunjin, the Send a lawyer Thomas Singelo, Sondua. Any J.U. Jan, Jago Sang Yuri, Dong Yun, and Trago Sang Yuri, Garda Newmombata, Newmombala Gensi Mede, then Gadujina, Devata, Gadujina, Medevata, Machiba Zoga, Yupe, then Nasoka Moshi, the Kachimboris, then suppose. Gendung chimbek song kado ina nge solangi dada jimangke gendung chimbek kado song dosena sukpo sane dukdam sis sukpo tamje kang deja hiene dukdam hiye yoris ngak chi yongko mendo ni mendo dukdam hiye yoris urpo sane menga dongsi ang tangbo tamje ke ta ni mi dang kwana ke dongha dong dosi Merrickson, the Donga Kurbo and those Jaluk and Donga and those. Then common Latin Kaduna, they'll come and just on the way. They'll come and those on the
way. And so we all know that how things kind of work in the world. We all want certain things, we want to accomplish or have certain things, and our wishes are really endless. But then we all know that it's actually very hard to always exactly get what you want according to your wishes. It rarely happens. And so that's why, no matter who it is, everyone has their own suffering in their minds. And even though some people might not have any obvious external difficulties, they might be well off and so on, but still, as long as their mind is controlled by the afflictive emotions, they will not find any happiness, any mental happiness. They will never be content with anything. In the Calling the Guru from Afar, Chamgyal Kongtrul said that people are, their needs are they're endless. There is no end to their needs. They're insatiable. If they have one thing, they need another. If they have two, they need three, and so on. For example, nowadays, if we just all we want is an iPhone, and once we have an iPhone, then we also want an iPad, and once we have that, then we also want a computer, and so on. So we just want more and more all the time, and in that. This discontentment, this lack of being content, that is what deceives you. So that's what it says in Calling the Guru from Afar, that deceives you, that leads you astray. So therefore, he said, Guru, quickly think of me with compassion and grant your blessings that I may become like you. And so, for example, if you have one thing, then that won't be enough. We want 100. If we have 1,000 things, then we want 10,000 and so on. There's just no end to our afflictive emotions. And for as long as they are present, they will always create dissatisfaction in our mind. They will always make us feel unhappy. That's important for us to recognize. And then Gendin Chöpel said that the rich talk about their their problems to each other. So they also have their problems, so they speak about the hardships of their lives. And then the poor lament about their poverty when they speak to each other. So everyone complains about their suffering because everyone has their own suffering. Everyone experiences their own suffering. And he said that there is nowhere in this samsaric state of existence where you can find any true happiness.
Okay, then the chung choki. Go yoris. Do chung choki. That thing go yoris. Then do chung choki mean not any jarbo in a tambo is. Then the gabo gang song you paris in that. Coven you make something, Tabat Dripala Comandagoris, the Gomada Chuchanan. I tell and don't do Chong Choki sin, don't I? The name Kova, you make the Santa Tabat Dripala Comandagoris.
So what we must therefore develop is fewer desires and more contentment. And if we cannot bring up some contentment in our mind, being happy with what we have, then even if you are a king, you will still be poor inside. Also, Gampopa said in that same text, there are 10 dharmas that encourage you to attain liberation. And so one of them, for example, is to always remember the suffering of samsara. And remembering the suffering of samsara, develop fewer desires and more contentment.
Sapink deva chong la chapa ye chimbi deva thomnesi ni te de kan da dong ha ga ran jin yin ba ngim jong gom ne sam ta je te tang ne de ta ba tham chen chen be gong phang la be zon nang go ge yu re som da.
And if one is only attached to this life, it is useless also because we don't really have any control over what will happen in this life, even if we are attached. Sakya Pandita said that if you, for as long as you are attached to the small pleasures of this life, you will never find great true happiness. And until then, everything will always have the nature of suffering, essentially. So therefore, it's better to direct our mind toward making an effort so that we may attain that state of liberation and all-knowingness.
Chön de sen ni gawe mong pot se ni ma lo si da me le tin ton do pa kap su de ne da le lo na yang ma do tang ma yo ne de ni ta ban tham chen chen be gong fan zhou go yo re si de ne don ban na re da ge zhe de ban na re si ta na me le dong de re si de ni jin ba che chen zu ba san tin then zong zhi jin ne nyam ling gang to ma zuo xi guo ge yo re si ne da de le tin de la dong yu ba sa o sam ne de ne tu sang gong song la zong ba si zhe dang de ne de nga jie wa zhang mi ba xie lang yu jiang du mi xu zhi de song ne de ne ta ben zhe wa lin ji zang yang ma yu be da ri me le de dong dan den ba xie si sam ne dam jia yang yang si guo ge yo re si.
And then the Bodhicharya Avatara, it says, it is through the ship, the boat of the human body that we can transcend cross the ocean, the waters of great suffering. This ship, this boat, is very difficult to find, and therefore do not waste it in dullness, and do not sleep in ignorance. Do not become distracted, and do not be lazy, but make an effort in attaining liberation while you can. And that means, for example, even if you just take a single vow, or you practice a single virtue, you abandon a single non-virtue, then you are making your human life meaningful. So therefore, we should do the best we can to practice the paramitas of generosity and ethical discipline and patience, to meditate and to practice all of these with great diligence. So lift your mind and think that now I have this precious human body. I have to make it meaningful by all means. You make it meaningful by listening, reflecting, and meditating on the teachings with great diligence. Because until now, in all past lifetimes, I have wasted many lives meaninglessly, and therefore still have not attained liberation. And now that I have found a precious human body, just this one single time, I must make it meaningful. So try to make this commitment, take this vow to yourself, a commitment of making the greatest meaning out of this life.
Jelly yin shen it mail lick tot Tamatop Shimayo, Karsi Tona, Chudan Ted, and the Shiga Maris. Then Tata that Chudan Ted, Chudan Ted, then the Shik Kokapja you do, then Chudogo Yuris.
And so therefore, practice even the smallest virtuous action and abandon even the smallest non-virtuous action. And think that now is the time where I can practice. Now, when you have the opportunity, if you might think that even if I don't practice the Dharma now, I can practice the Dharma in a future life. And that is really mistaken, because you don't know if you will be born as a precious human again. And even if you are, you don't know if you will encounter the holy Dharma and so on. So now you have everything complete. You have a human body, you have met the Dharma, you have the opportunity. So now is the time to practice the Dharma.
Then Joma did it, Gungishina, Tampan Lachi, Tadani, the Lachi Mezita, Tripchin Lama, Shandan de Ges, Lama Dama, San Lama Yana, Rangarani, Lower Majora.
Then also in the Bardo, the 6 Bardo root verses, the last verse says, with mind far off and no thought of impending death, performing the meaningless activities of this life, to return empty-handed now would be utterly deluded. Recognize what is needed, the sacred Dharma. Why not practice it now at this very moment? The great accomplished gurus have said, if you do not keep in mind your master's instructions, are you not deceiving yourself?
Lama Dhamma Assembly Yad Benetini, Tambachud Madamna, Rangarang. So shock your is, then a lot of Melotara so is. Then that Habatunia Sigo to the Kajimbo in Paris. Nim Jong Cornta, she's having away. Then that's Sancho Sam. Yeah, Sancho Sam, yeah, and Linda. Yeah.
So what this is saying is that you might have the instructions of the guru, but even though you have them in your mind, if you don't practice them, you are deceiving yourself. So whether or not you're deceiving yourself is entirely in your hands, up to you. So it's important to remind yourself to strive toward actual liberation. So that is what I wanted to say about renunciation, and now I will speak about bodhichitta.
Sewe sen jambo ke nga jang ne tani nga ke bodang bomo te zamdo leng na ne jopam jo zok je lo sereng ne mi yong na sambe la sam le mi de tani phama ni de ris tani phama ke rang ke bodang bomo che de so lo tang thok ge yo res tani jase la ne na ka re song ye sa ang ge joba na de na thomi de na da la che wa chi 만남 동나 란디 지식사 대선 타의 신진자스 산초 신진 야세라는 인시 랑 지고 많이 봐 파마 신진 탐지 대반도 봐 징송 농할면도 봐 징송 인디 등진 파마 신진 탐지 대바다 대반은 사오 냐바 공고 요리스
And then when we strive toward peace and liberation, we shouldn't do it just for ourselves, but we should remember that all sentient beings in all of our past lifetimes have been our parents. And while they were our parents, they cared for us with great love and spoke to us gently and had a completely pure intention toward us. All they wanted is just our happiness, thinking that may my son or my daughter have everything in this world, all the wealth and perfect health and a long life and so on. And a parent would be able to even give their life for their son or their daughters. And so in the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says in verse 10, so when my mothers who have been kind to me since beginningless time are suffering, what's the use of my own happiness? So therefore, giving rise to bodhicitta in order to liberate limitless sentient beings is the bodhisattva's practice. So when we strive toward liberation, then we should not just think about it for ourselves, but think that there are all these sentient beings who have been my parents. And what is the use of my happiness when they are all suffering? So when you strive toward liberation, it means to strive for the happiness of all those like mother sentient beings.
Yeah, then that dongar da travel sound and the ninja gongo yores. Deva the dimbar sound and samba dongar da travel sound and ninja. Then the pama semchin tamje dongar me deva the dina and gawa go. That gawa the deva rangin semchin jing song in the then pama sem pama bunda nyamdra zamayiba. Semchin tam jela gombena anhong chimbo in betini sanje je gombang tobar sibe yoyin sondo.
So we develop love for sentient beings, which is a wish for their happiness, and compassion, which is a wish to freedom from suffering. And so first wishing that sentient beings be free from suffering and are happy, and then when they achieve happiness, we feel joy in that, that's rejoicing. And it is not limited to certain beings, but all sentient beings. We find joy in all beings' happiness. And also our love is not limited to just our parents or our family and friends and so on, but it is the same, it is equal, an equal kind of love for all beings, and that is immeasurable equanimity. So we should think that may all sentient beings be happy and free from suffering, may they all attain the state of enlightenment.
semji pane yindong de yanda zog sanjen du song do semjin dong de semji ne deji dende sijite sanje top juriyes.
So this is the cause of attaining Buddhahood. If one cultivates a wish to benefit all sentient beings, that wish, that altruistic wish, is the cause for attaining Buddhahood.
Semji pane yindong lam dong semji pane randong de yanda zog sanjen du song do de de semjin tamje dong de semji de ge jin bo rin do rang ji bo mai ba.
So it is saying that to cultivate a wish to benefit all others. So you strive to liberation for the benefit of others. So it doesn't say that you strive for liberation for your own benefit. That's not the kind of mind generation we're talking about, but it's for all sentient beings. In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. Therefore, exchanging one's own happiness for the suffering of others is the Bodhisattva's practice.
Lama tamba namje sungpe danga na nyamsa lama la tena tin thoggu ba keres.
Patrul Rinpoche said that the 84,000 Dharma teachings all are included within bodhichitta. Therefore, no matter what arises, whatever is the difficulty, bodhichitta is most important. And also Gachun Rinpoche really bases all of his teachings on bodhicitta. He always speaks about bodhicitta. And that, of course, has a great significance. There's a reason. So we surely must cultivate bodhicitta. And cultivating bodhicitta is not just for the sake of future lives, but even right now, whenever bodhicitta arises, you will feel peaceful and happy in any given moment. And that's something everyone really actually knows. And also, it really stands to reason from a scientific perspective, and most people really believe in science. So even scientifically, actually, it is said that if one's mind is peaceful and happy, that really contributes to longevity and fewer illnesses, and even it is said that one will not age so quickly if the mind is peaceful and happy. And again, peace and happiness is not something that you can buy in the market. And it's also not something that a kind of a blessing or something that the guru can just give you or transfer onto you. But it is something that you must cultivate yourself by putting the instructions, the teachings from the guru into practice.
Corbett don't have sack survey. That current Nadun Kari Landusina, then Sanjake, Chanak de Bate, Cholon, Togumares, then in Kovak don't hack 대 산제 그냥 그 살아 그 레는 너가 매발 이거 두고 말이지. 근데 산제 투주 용된데 지난번 파트 때 줘야 요 말이지. 근데 지난 그 출러 진이 근데 출그 내lok도 양다반 통나 진이 그 림바다 양다반 통요나 근데 장아 전도 그 요리지. 너가 전도 그 요리지. 하고서 돈남 득바 쳐야 맞죠. 거기다가 사기 설 니도 봐. 예난 폼이. 진이 림바 통나. 좋아죠. 다 전도와
And the Buddha said that I cannot wash your sins, like washing it with water. And I cannot take you by the hand and lift you out of samsara and place you into a location where there is no suffering. And I cannot give you the qualities of my enlightened mind. Only when you directly see, when you experience the true nature of phenomena, the ultimate reality of things, only then will you find liberation from suffering.
야, 네, 나 주저때 되네 담보 두바, 되네 삼바, 되네 곰바. 나 된데는 되네 산제적 공판 토고바. 나 된저적 성을 요리스.
So in brief, Dharma practice means that we attain the state of enlightenment by first listening, then reflecting, and then practicing or meditating on the Dharma.
되네 딘바 이잖아. 담보 logic 내도 무시. 되네 logic 나라니. 되네 미드 산에 되네 내 저거 된저적 성도와 대치과린도.
In the teachings on the Four Noble Truths, also it says that first you have to identify your physician, your doctor, and then you have to the doctor, and the doctor diagnoses your illness. Then, after you are diagnosed, then you have to listen to the doctor's instructions. Then you have to take the medicine that you are prescribed. And then when you follow the whole procedure, the instruction of the physician, then you will become healed from your illness. So it's very similar to that.
근데 산나 시대 바법조고나 근데 뉴몬반도 자체다 또뭐 산라든 자원나긴데 중도 따고 그 도스 근데 삼바다 인지 인빈 상조선 로라 신의 가가 조부 야슈근데 기세고 그 요레스 된 다다 나서 조부는 뉴몬바 차다 뉴몬바 차대 요레스本来 만 봉보 침보 해라 마 봉보 침보 이나 마 장보 해 문진 마 장보 이나 니지
Disco. Mi pompa mata ambore.
마 봉보 장보 이나스 근데 니게라 코 뉴몬보 왕도 혈소나 근데 랑게 니다 님저소라 차 근데 문통도 소라 당네 내가 세나 근데 참소롱 찬로 요라 근데 소나 근데 란소 야타 인소 반답 내가 레시 내가 레 연구 유드 내가 랑나더니 뽕복거란게 지기 냠로 로아타 근데 강아타 뇨라가 나나 손로가 요레스 근데 뽕복거란라 셈라십데 당 바파 유바카보리스 근데 다 가리선 코 연행소라 닌지소라 도차가 차송로와 근데 고된다 농하존도 요리스
Think 방고 걸.
아
방고. 장보.
그 장보
장보 걸.
그 장보 뭐 장보지나
담보 장보이나.
장보이나
드링에 모셔나.
근데 뭐 연행코 쇼는도 차고 왕도 쇼소나 근데 내가 주나 근데 고된다 장로 요라 다 하고서
So in order to develop a state of peace and happiness in the mind, we need to perceive the afflictive emotions, especially attachment, anger, and ignorance, as our true enemies, as flawed states of mind. And we should regard the feelings of love and compassion, of bodhichitta, of altruism, as our best friend in our mind. Right now, our best friends are the afflictive emotions. For example, if you have a kind of a official, like a government official or a minister or so, who starts out being really honest, but then one day he becomes controlled by afflictive emotions, and then because he's attached to his own side, like his friends and families and so on, and then he develops an aversion against the other side, then he might do all kinds of things that are contrary to the law. For example, they might do things that bring victory to themselves and ruin to others and so on. So then eventually, if that's what he does, then even though he was really honest and good in the beginning, in the end he will lose all of his fame, all of his kind of brilliance and renown in the world, and then he will just end up in a lot of difficulties and troubles. And then also in his mind, he will certainly will not experience peace and happiness, and he will be in a state of suffering and misery. And so that all comes from the attachment to one's close ones and the aversion against others. So in this way, again and again, we are creating suffering. And so this is really how the afflictive emotions create suffering. It begins with being attached to one's own side. And once we are attached to one side, we have already created suffering right there and then.
Yena yang ngaso tamar ba je wa ha ko kapu ha kona yang te wang don mro wang go top kapu res mala re pa ka song yo res du pa nor tan te de song do cha jen do de re chi song do do cha jen do de re chi zap zap chi song na de re chi zen zap zap kin do pa nor te de
de pa nor
do pa nor ta nga lu ko ye
te be kap la ra
te de do cha jen do de
So no, even if one starts out as a good, for example, in a country, the leader of a country, and with their ministers and so on, their cabinet, and starts out well, but once they become controlled by desire and by attachment, it's, for example, it starts with wasting a lot of the resources, money, and so on. And in the end, we all know that they will end up in difficulties. So our actual enemy is that our desire or attachment. And ordinary people cannot really see that. And even if we understand that we shouldn't have too much desire, even though we know that, we still actually become controlled by it, and it's still very difficult to stop it from arising. So therefore, Milarepa says that whenever you are in a circumstance where desire or attachment to an object of desire arises, be extremely vigilant and careful. So desire, a desirous object is just one example, but it can be applied to any other sense perceptions, so not just forms, but also sounds and touch and tastes and so on. Whatever it is, when you encounter it and you are unmindful and you don't do what should be done and you don't give up what should be given up, then you will become controlled by afflictive emotions, and that will create much trouble.
Okay. That's how much Sanjay Gujo Jan, then it was time by letter by Chang, one key. Then in Nangan cook at the one and on the Yoris, Nimum Wanda. Sanjay Gujo, then Chapimado, Nimum one gender. One and on the Yoris, Nimum Bakatiota with Yoris. That Della, Kade Jankin de that Jinshi. Tata Malaria Basunen dog, Dupa Northern Theatres on the charge at the rich is on one night, Jinshi simple tone. Then the Rangle Lunga is on a tag about this. Then it's Hajek, say Dachin Zilla, some not Hamjek, Melon, double judge at the carrier, some say Dachin, the package at the say Dachin Zig, Melon, double judge at the Rank Zugzilla Dachiri, Ashura. Oh, 10 9 Chiranka Kaduina, Chiranka Lunga is on a tabartango das. Jumbar Taki Lunga is on Taki. I was Hanjaka, Dachins in the water. Ah, say Dachinzi. Sanjay Sanjay said to the Mari Mari Melon Sansamala Yura. Kong Gelon Husarva. Sales to Vatanga. But Sank Melon, you want to get the double judge at the carrier. Say, what they not to Zuputache, which it is. Say. Then Sanjaka, oh, there is. Then there is. Chiranka 10 Chiranka Lunga is on a Kaduina, Taki Sigori, that's her. Then rank Tega rank Zugi Tawa Nangi, then it Jumba Rangasam la Parta goose. Jumba Rangasam la Taki, Sena, Nontromeon. Lunga is on a Taki Mazena Nontroyon. Chinshi danger the Karchembo in, then the song you is.
Even though everyone, all beings possess the cause of Buddhahood, Buddha nature, still they continue to wander endlessly from lifetime to lifetime, controlled by the afflictive emotions. So therefore, for as long as we are controlled by the afflictive emotions, the mere presence of Buddha nature is not of much use to us, because our mind has become enslaved by the afflictive emotions. And the counter agent that opposes this enslavement is mindfulness. So as Milarepa just said, we mentioned before, whenever you encounter an object of desire, be vigilant and mindful, and guard your body, speech, and mind. And once when the Buddha was alive, and the Buddha's son, Rahula, everyone had asked the Buddha, so like what is like why does everybody have a mirror? Like what is the point of everyone having a mirror? And so then the son said, it must be to look in, like to see your face, to kind of check your appearance. And the Buddha said, it's exactly that. A mirror is so you can see, you can check. But what you should check and look at is your body, speech, and mind. So just like looking in a mirror, always look at your body, speech, and mind, and always examine your mind all the time. If you're always vigilant and examine your mind, then you will not be mistaken in your actions. But once you stop looking at your mind, examining your body, speech, and mind, then you will be mistaken in your actions. And so for this reason, he said that mindfulness is most important.
Okay. Then I just say la lina some just something by Maria, Donna County, Julan Jesses, Rang, some makeup gender, June to Tin, and shipping in by Jindun drop by Jesse Lally, in some banana, June to Tinny, Tinshi. Tinshi, then get in Lander ne Gangi Patampi, Hakoa. Tinny shipping ke. Ten nangin rocken dog dan up to sin. Then the sake of your race.
In 37, Bodhisattva practices, in verse number 36, it says, at all times, in whatever you do, look at the state of your mind and constantly examining yourself with mindfulness for the sake of others is the Bodhisattva's practice. So be mindful all the time. With mindfulness, you will know what to do and what not to do at any time. And with mindfulness, you are able to see, is what I am doing consistent with what I actually aspire or intend to do.
Then Sancho said the Kagalap, but something like the time of Java Samayimpa. Ningong Robert and me, Pama Simpson Tamji, Deva than Dina, Jamaro, Deva that then by his dark drug, Deva that then by his Lama control something, to Ginchin, Yamba, some go race.
And then bodhicitta shouldn't be something that you just talk about, it's just lip service, and it shouldn't be your devotion shouldn't be just a display of piousness, and you're just folding your palms. It should come from the bottom of your heart. From the bottom of your heart, you should think, I really wish that all sentient beings are happy and that they are free from suffering, and I will accomplish that. So I pray to the Lama and the three jewels to think of me with compassion.
Then Muzun Sanjin Namchega, Lutan Lomju, Dami Lutan, then Lutan Nanyi, Dagajan, Pama Simpson, Tamjela, Pimpa and David Chid, Rank Lunda, Chaba Tong the Top Gujan, Juba me, Saba. Okay. Muzun Sanjin Namche, Lutan Lomju, Lutan, Rang. Pangwa Nanyi, Dagajan Pama Simpson Tamdela, Pintopa, David Chida, Rank Lunda, Chapa Mambo Tom, Togu, Juba me, Samba Pimba, Juba me, Sambata, Deta Java Seda Jeba, Sancho Samba, Juba Kangjeba, Daga Juba, Nibar Georgia, Lama Conjo, some chin, Yam.
And so then you should make prayers, for example, thinking that just as the Buddhas of the past have willingly, freely given up everything, their bodies, their resources, everything for the sake of others, similarly, may I also be able to give up everything for mother sentient beings in order to benefit them, in order to bring happiness to them. For example, may I even be able to cut my own body into pieces if necessary, without any regret. May my actions resemble the actions of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. Help me that I am able to practice, to act like a Bodhisattva acts. So consider me Guru and three jewels.
Teta yang sen la lo jang remjin be tor chimbo me gupa. Tene sambe samta tela tin tene yingji chimbo je yong de tene sama tenjin zhenjong yin de tene toni tojo la tani wo chage yo ris. Tene tangbo ngasu samba da yingji la lo jang je te gar chimbo yin pa da paturumbo cheke. Lobjong ranke londe jong sancho sem de ranke lobjang na lunga gewa na je ma ze jang tarpa lam na chuksa yore kins tarpa lam na chuksa yore kin Kinzen, not you. Jataba, Joseph Goni, that's not a Kinzen.
So therefore, in this way, you should train your mind again and again, and gradually develop these qualities. So first, love arises, and then from love, great compassion arises. And because everything is interdependent, you step closer and closer to realizing emptiness. So therefore, in the beginning, it's important to start with training the mind in love and compassion. And Patrul Rinpoche had said that when you train your mind, mind training refers to training your own mind. And what your own mind should be trained in is the mind of bodhichitta. Even if you are not able to do anything with body and speech, if you train the mind in bodhichitta, then I will guarantee you that you will reach the state of liberation.
Okay, that. Tena yon do nata. Then check Zaba pine. With the got the check Zaba. You won't out the carrier. Then Nim Jong Gong go your race. Cadina. The nature and you go. They end the Nim Jong kitchen boy in Bata. Then Nim Jong Lodon number ye. The Cadina Sango your race. Lodon number get the Chung race and Sakin Zokin down Marite. Theasaris and some you maris. That's what Chula Kermanda Packet told our is. They didn't Gonitan Lungdi Mambo Tangri Dan Yanjaki Mogobachi. The name Nibada Sancho San Gongo your race. In Yonki Wall Yunayate, Sancho San Magona, Sancho Comanto Mede, then Sancho San Gongo Yadan. Or that end of this in Nibo.
So that completes the teachings. And so to summarize, the essence of the teachings is that cultivate renunciation. Think about renunciation all the time. Renunciation is what encourages you or inspires you to enter and to practice the dharma. It's most important. And it's the essence of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. Always reflect on those 4 thoughts and don't diminish their significance, thinking that it's not so important. They're kind of beginning practices. What's more important is Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Don't think in this way, because the 4 thoughts, cultivating renunciation is really your companion along the way. It causes you to enter the dharma, it inspires you to persevere in the dharma, and so on. And so I already mentioned many quotations before, I won't mention them again. But always cultivate renunciation. Think about renunciation. And then secondly, cultivate bodhicitta. Because renunciation alone will also not lead you to enlightenment if you lack bodhicitta. So therefore cultivate bodhicitta. So these 2 things really are the essence.
Okay, now dedication only English, page number 11.
By this merit, may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Whatever virtues sentient beings possess, whatever good they have done, will do, and are doing now, whatever goodness there may be, may it permeate all beings everywhere. By the virtue accumulated throughout the 3 times by others and myself, may all beings filling the reaches of space enter the gateway of the unexcelled path, and may they attain the Vajra holder's ground. By all the virtue actually performed and mentally created, by myself and all sentient beings of the 3 times, may all beings of the 6 realms attain the 5 kayas and realize the primordial wisdom of the Buddhas in the Dharmadhatu mandala of the awakened mind. Glorious root Guru, precious one who sits upon a lotus at my heart, hold me with kindness and grant me all the accomplishments of enlightened body, speech, and mind. I pray for the excellent health of the Guru. I pray that he lives a supremely long life. I pray that his activities spread far and wide. Grant blessings that I may not be separate from my Guru. May the Buddha's teachings, the only source of benefit and happiness, endure long. And may the victory banner of longevity be steadfast for those who uphold the teachings. May the sound of the great Dharma drum liberate all sentient beings from suffering. Please remain and teach the Dharma for infinite millions of kalpas. By the might of this powerful merit, may the aspirations of the benefactors and their circles be accomplished within this very life. May their obstacles be pacified, may everything be auspicious, and may their wishes be fulfilled according to the Dharma. Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues. As all such dedications have been praised as supreme by the victorious ones of the 3 times, I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue to excellent conduct. By the blessing of the Buddhas who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging nature of reality, and by the blessing of the undivided Sangha community, may my prayers be fulfilled according to this dedication. By the virtues accumulated in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the intrinsic root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious awakening. Great Vajradhara, Tilopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lord Gampopa, Pagmodrupa, and Lord Drigumpa, may the auspiciousness of all the Kagyu Lamas prevail.
How long like praying in Tibet? Page number 22. O Gara Rave Gorve Yenganso Pendan Deva Malu Jungwen Jinre Zengwa Denze Jamzo Ye Yabe Senda Bard Danger Ye Guancho Sumde Shakja Senge Ye Tenban Zinjan Bebe Danye Je Kwenzan Choban Jordan Telan Jo Lanja Jenzen Lame Yaden Zo Guancho Sumja Danye Dragong Be Tenban Zinla Dada Dojen De Tambe Chuje Shipsara Nawa Ye Jega Wokjin Joga Yaden Zo Pakbe Yan Aryan Deva Jan Dokam Soza Garja Reso Jeden Gombe Doze Chuden Ba Babden Garjin Gete Gaja Shibza Gunza Gunjin Chuje Demdre Nela Wanton Drikung Ba Rinjin Barja Damba Senda Ba Shidra Duzan Gumben Zinjo Sadon Korlo Jirwe Jarbo Don Jindon Garba Zangbe Zanje Don Namka Dava Jabe Zewa Jin Samba Jinre Zigla Sovan Du Oy Mane Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Abu Lama and Ina and all the translators. Thanks everyone to join us. We'll see you all tomorrow.